What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're taking a look at Mortal Kombat 1 early access here on the Steam Deck for SteamOS, and really the game's running pretty well. There are some janky things, but it's not really all on the Steam Deck. I'm having some weird things on Ally and on my 3060 desktop PC, so I'm sure day one patches and beyond will straighten that out. But let's go ahead and get into it here. Now, the game is marked playable over on SteamOS, which actually changed while I was working on the video. We had that question mark earlier, so good to see playable is marked. And I'm not forcing any compatibility layers here either. We're just kind of rolling with things. As far as the settings go, we are going to have those borders at the top and bottom, unfortunately, but we're borderless 800p, VSync off for the video. We will be using FSR2 quality and balanced, and we'll look at medium and stuff like that. FPS limits in game are 30, 40, 50, 60. We'll leave it at 60 right now, and we'll mess with 30, 40 on the deck itself. You can certainly go in and tweak a lot of other little settings and stuff, but I think these presets and just kind of rolling this way will show us the performance we want to see in here. I'm also running the 4 gigabytes of VRAM in the BIOS. So let's start off with some benchmark here, just so that we can see what this performance is like, because it is actually pretty close to what I see in real world. Actually worse, because a lot of the fights I get into are more in the 50s and low with FSR, but here you can see there's not a huge difference between low FSR2 off quality and balanced, although it does help you in game a bit to have FSR2 quality on, which I use a lot. But because we're not pushing that GPU to the max as it is, and we do seem to be a bit CPU or resource limited in some way here, pulling the game back a bit, we're not able to gain a whole lot anyways by lowering that render resolution. And when it comes to low versus medium with FSR2 off here, you'll see a few FPS difference. I do run the game in medium a bit with a 30 or 40 FPS lock, which we'll look at later in the video. But as far as just running the game uncapped, I pretty much stick with low. Going to high kind of makes things fall apart, so that's why I opted to stick with low and medium right now. And this being early access, there are a lot of janky things that we'll take a look at really quickly as well. And I think we'll see some day one patches to help, and certainly patches after the game comes out. So I won't fully be judging the performance right now, but you can see between low and medium with FSR2 quality here, a little bit of a difference. It does help a bit here to be on low at that point. And then going over here to FSR2 balanced with low and medium, you'll see a similar thing. 3, 4 FPS difference depending on what's going on here. Sometimes they're even. So depending on where you're at in the game, what kind of arena, what kind of fight, what kind of effects are happening, moves, all of that is going to depend on how much low, medium, and FSR are really affecting the performance. Now, menus get pretty janky though. Like, everything's locked to 30 FPS in all of the different menus and areas that you go into, which is fine, but they're never 30. They're weird with frame times, and we dip down sometimes below 26 FPS, 27 FPS, and it just feels kind of clunky and strange. And that's one of those things I think will be smoothed out, maybe even with a day one patch, but we'll have to see. Same thing here, like character selection takes a while for the characters to kind of load in. We drop FPS a good bit, and it can be a bit of a rough experience. Now, the scenes in the games as well, when you kind of activate your special powers, or you might do a finishing move or something, that gets pretty rough and janky as well, but at least you're not controlling anything at that point. You're not moving around yourself. This is just happening on screen, so it's not as bad, but it does happen a good bit depending on what you're doing in the game, and that doesn't matter if you're on low or medium or what. That's just what happens. Now, the cutscenes in the game, especially like when you're in story mode, which is probably where I'll play most of my time here with MK1, they're probably pre-rendered 60 FPS scenes. They still have some little oddities here and there, but all of those seem to be 60 FPS. Now, when you leave those and go back into gameplay, they cut back to a 30 FPS cap for these scenes. All of the intro scenes for fights are at 30, and then it unlocks that and goes back to an unlocked, or rather 60 FPS cap for when you're actually fighting. So a little bit weird when you're playing, but once you're in the game playing, once you're fighting, everything's pretty smooth. And this here with low FSR2 felt great to play here. Frame times are smooth, nothing feels too janky, inputs are clean, so nothing I could really complain about when I'm actually fighting and playing the game. But there is a bunch of little jankiness around that when you're not actually in here fighting that does feel odd, that I think will be smoothed out. And it doesn't really matter what I do with the settings, that's just kind of how it is. But all in all, super happy that the game is launching and playing this well, especially early access on the Steam Deck. I really wasn't sure how well this game was going to work or run, and I would prefer a solid 60 FPS, but that's going to be fairly difficult from what I'm seeing here so far. But that's okay, because it is running pretty decently. Now, in the invasion or seasonal mode, that's again locked down to 30 FPS. It starts me off in Johnny Cage's mansion here. I didn't get super far into this, but any of your navigation here is going to be 30. And then again, when you jump back into a match, it's going to go back to that 60 FPS cap. The only way to keep things like really smooth is if you want to, or I wouldn't necessarily say smooth, but consistent would be if you lock the game to 30, which we'll take a look at as well. That would make all the cutscenes, all of your menus, all of your gameplay locked to 30. So here's medium FSR2 quality at 30 FPS lock with the Steam Deck, and I never dipped below 30 no matter where I was. This kept frame times nice because I locked it with 30 on the Steam Deck, and that helped out a lot. It doesn't feel as quick or fluid or smooth. I didn't really prefer it. It just, there's a little bit more delay there with my input at this 30 FPS. I would rather not have even without VSync on necessarily, or in-game VSync anyway, I should say. But when it comes to 40 FPS, I thought that felt pretty good. This was fairly responsive and smooth. That 10 FPS can make a difference, and rarely do I drop below the 40. Some rounds and matches come 38, 39, but for the most part, I was able to do this at medium. You could do it with low if you were having some trouble coming below 40, but this worked out pretty well and was pretty smooth. I think I could do 40, but anyways, this is kind of a first look, early access for MK1 here on the Steam Deck. Wanted to see what performance was doing. Hopefully this will give you guys an idea where we're at with performance for the game. I think it can only really get better from here. Day one patches after that, probably in the first few weeks and couple of months, the game will improve and get even better, which will be nice to see here on Steam Deck. And I'll try to follow the game and do some updated videos as well, especially if we get a decent day one patch and do some comparing for the performance here. All right, guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video. As always, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.